and allow me to go back and answer some of those questions. Unfortunately, this platform, if I unmuted everybody, it'd be hard to hear, and I wouldn't know who's asking what question, and would get probably talked over by a number of other people. So let's use the chat function. Send in your questions that way. I'll review them at the end, and definitely feel free to type in more questions when we get to the end of this. So really the purpose of this webinar is really to get the team matches started on the right foot. NCGA staff has provided the team captain manual. And in addition to that, they've actually placed the manual on both the Thursday and the Saturday portals. I strongly encourage you, if you haven't done so, to read through that. If you take 20 or 30 minutes to read through that, that time is going to be saved on the back end if you're just trying to hunt and peck and do stuff and send in questions to the support staff or to the NCGA. There's not much in that manual that would come up that you shouldn't be able to have your questions answered within that manual. So definitely make sure that you read through that when you have an opportunity, and refer to that as team matches proceed throughout the year. So what we're going to do today is really we're just going to go through a majority of that manual. And we're going to cover areas briefly on captain invitation, the dashboard, where you as a captain would go within the software, how you're going to create your team roster, your weekly lineup. Also look at how to check course handicaps, the setting of course and tee, the updating of handicaps for your section. Reports, really those are going to be scorecards for the most part, and card signs. And then entering scores, submitting results, and also posting scores. So we're going to cover that today. And what I'm going to do is really more of a demo on each area. So I want you guys to kind of see what I'm doing if I was a captain. So it's exactly what you guys would be doing. So the first area we're going to cover is the captain invitation. Now, I've checked. Obviously, the first matches are coming up tomorrow, so this is a little bit later than I had anticipated doing webinars, but most of you already have access. I've checked. There's a few that still have not signed in. Double check if you're one of those individuals that have not received an email yet, because we did resend out a few about 2 hours ago. So double check your email if you're a captain that hasn't received an invitation to be a captain. Also, you should have received event manager access as well. So as far as logging in, I haven't heard from Rick as far as logging in on the NCGA website. I'm sure that there's a place, but you can also log in very easily on golfgenius.com. So let me change my screen here real quick. All right, hopefully you can see my entire desktop now. So either logging in, if they do have a link from the NCGA website, you can sign in on the portal, or if you go to golfgenius.com, you can sign in as well. Okay, moving on. So let's assume that you as captains have already received access to be a captain. You've got access to the portal, and you've got access to what we call the advanced mode, or the manager side of Golf Genius. And we'll talk about here in just a moment of where you're going to be performing certain actions as a captain. So the first thing I really want to point out, because I've already seen questions come in around this area, is the dashboard and what you see as a captain. Again, this is in the manual. Just log in here real quick. But we do need to make sure that on the dashboard that we're displaying the correct filters. And what I mean by that is you may have access to multiple accounts with your email address. So you may see up here in the kind of middle to top right, multiple accounts. You want to make sure that first you're in the Northern California Golf Association account, and then any filters that we have are set to all. You may have a season filter. You may have the sort by. We want to make sure that the filters are set to all and we're not sorting. And that allows us to view the advanced mode link. So we're going to have two different links on your dashboard. You've got one which is the portal, and you've got one that gives you access to the manager side or the advanced mode of TM for your section. So I want to point that out because it does cause some confusion sometimes if somebody's filter is not set to all and they won't see particularly this advanced mode link. So you should see both of these. Some of you who were captains last year may see 2018 still. Obviously, we're using 2019 this year. Captain navigation. So where do we go to do what within USGA TM? So there's a couple different areas, as we just looked at, that you're going to navigate within the software. And there's certain actions where you're going to perform those. On the Team Matches portal, this is where you would create your team roster. This is where you would add players to the team throughout the year, and where you would set the weekly lineup. The Event Manager, or the Advanced Mode link, brings us into an area where we can set the course and tee. We can update player handicaps. We're going to be entering hole-by-hole scores. The ability to post those scores to GIN, and also access the report center. So let's take a look. Creating the team roster. So I'm back here on my dashboard. And as we just talked about, and this is what the manual states, is to create your team roster, you simply go to your portal. This portal is a test portal that I've set up that is very similar to what you see as a captain within the NCGA. So when I hover over team matches, I go to edit pairings. And right now I'm a captain for, I believe it's Hidden Valley Lakes. So I pick a round of which my team is playing in and hit the select button. I've already got pairings pre-populated for this demo, but it doesn't matter. If I click on Hidden Valley Lake, I come down here to add new player, and I can search either by last name, GIN number. So if I put in just 2 characters, it's going to pull up anybody that's eligible for me to add to my team and my roster. Sorry if you're Brad, Dustin, or Gary, but these are all players that are eligible to be added to my team roster from Hidden Valley Lakes. So simply clicking add adds the player to the team and to your roster. Now I've seen some captains have gone through and added players to their rosters via spreadsheet. That may have been communication that was given last year. My opinion, it's not the best way to do this because I've seen multiple errors done with spreadsheet uploads already. For example, one club uploaded 150 plus players for their team, which they really only need maybe 20 or 30. I've seen rosters come through with first name, last name, and all lowercase. I've seen rosters come through with no GIN numbers. I've seen rosters come through with a custom field question as gender. So there was in a gender column, there was a answer of not a sub. So a lot of errors that I've seen already from these spreadsheet uploads. And like I said, unfortunately, it may have been direction that was given last year, but the best way to really add your players is through this Add New Player button. And what this does is it pulls the player directly from the Gin Club roster. So we're getting the correct name, we're getting the correct gender, we're getting the correct Gin number, we're getting their current index that you pull them in with. So that is the best way to add the players to your team. Once they're on the team for the duration of team matches. You can add a new player at any point during the season. As long as they're eligible, you click Add New Player, you search for their name, you simply add them to your team. So very easy to do. If you have uploaded via spreadsheet, you may want to consider deleting your team players only from the roster and bringing them in through this method. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And creating the weekly lineup. So I'm going back to my dashboard because I want to start from the very beginning that you would as a captain, but we're essentially going to the exact same area we just were at. So if you're going to set your lineup, you come in here, and this is an action we're going to do on the portal. So I'm going to click the portal. I'm going to go into Edit Pairings. And for example, the round on June 20th, I'm going to select this. I'm going to select my team, Hidden Valley Lake. And you can see I have nobody in the pairings. So what I'll do is I highlight a cell, and then I find the player that I want to add. So Stan Smith is going to be my #1 player here. I simply highlight the cell, find the player, and click Go. So I'm going to do this until my pairings are completed. Once your pairings are done, you click Save. Now, one thing that's not in the manual that you may show up because I'm pushing to get this put in is a button here that's a Remove Player button. So if you do need to take somebody out, you can simply click on the cell, click Remove Button, click Remove Player, and it'll take that player out. I think that is very beneficial, and it gives us more flexibility in ordering our teams. So for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go back to the round that I already have players entered on. So Hidden Valley Lake. I click on my team. And you can see that I have my players entered in here already. Now, one thing the NCGA has done for the setup purposes of this is team captains are responsible for placing their players in the position they need to be in. They will not reorder based on this index right here. And just a small note here, the index that you see for the players here is their current handicap index. This is not their course handicap. And we'll talk about that here shortly. So pretty easy to set your pairings. Once it's in, we're done. I'm going to come back to this one. Setting of course and team. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And as the manual states, this is one of those areas where we're going to have to do this on the manager side. So manager side link, you're going to have a region and probably a section number that you are a event manager for, or have what we call event manager access. If we head to the rounds tab, we want to make sure that we're working in the round that your team is in, and click Edit Tee Sheet. It's going to take us to the pairing sheet on the manager side. And from here, we can assign course and tee. So we've gone in and cleaned up the course and tee. So you should only see the 4 courses that are in your section. Very easy. Click on Set Course and Tee. You pick the tee that you're playing. You select all players, and you select Go. And it will assign all players to the tee. Now, if for some reason you need to assign a certain individual or a group a different tee for any reason, it's very easy to do. If I was going to assign blue to the first four, I highlight those and select Go. And those 4 players would then have their tee be assigned correctly. So very easy to set course and tee. Now, one thing I do want to point out is because this year all captains will be entering hole-by-hole scores for a couple of different reasons, and I'll explain those here shortly. If you are participating in a match or a round where there's a shotgun start, it is critical that the starting hole be assigned. Obviously, with match play, these matches are going to start on the hole that you start on, and theoretically it could finish before you complete 18 holes. If there's not a hole assigned for a shotgun start, the system is going to think that everybody's starting on the first hole. So again, this is in the manual, and it explicitly states how to assign shotgun and shotgun starting holes. One thing I do want to mention is you can see here that I purposely put these holes out of order. One thing I would suggest not doing is sorting these so it shows 1, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. There's really no reason to do that. Just leave them as is. If you're printing scorecards or kite signs, you can simply just sort them after you print. But we want to keep these pairings intact based on what you've set them on the portal. Okay, so now that we've got course and tee assigned, I do want to go back and show you where you can see course handicap. So if you're on the portal, what we've done for team play this year is we've gone in and we've added pairings and results. I think it says all match results right now for every section within the Thursday and Saturday league. So if I go to pairings, I can see now that if I choose the round I was working in, I'm showing the player's course handicap here on this pairing sheet. So it's easy for a captain to double check that the course handicaps are correct here. But it also provides the option for any person that comes to the team match portal that wants to see another section. So for example, this is the Saturday league. You know, if I wanted to see the pairings for this section, I can very easily go and look at that. So Saturday, June 8th, these pairings have already been set. All match results, same thing. So we've got every section. Maybe you wanted to take a look at results for, you know, another section. You can very easily come in here, click on a section, and then you could choose a round when that round's been completed to view the match results. So let's take a look here. I head back to my tests. So you can see I've got my starting time, shotgun, my holes are assigned, and I'm showing course handicap for these players. So I'm going to head back to my dashboard here. Updating of player handicaps. So this is probably going to be one of the more important things that we discuss because it's going to be important that you as captains communicate with the other captains about how to update handicaps. It's easy to do, but I think the issue falls where maybe you have matches that are playing on or around a revision date, and how and who will be responsible for updating those handicaps. So let's take a look about where to do this within the system. So the team captain manual states that this is an action that you would take in the advanced mode. So from the dashboard, we're back here at this familiar screen that we just saw. Under the Golfers tab, we have Access GIN to update handicap indexes. Now, what I was explaining just a minute ago is however you determine who's going to be responsible for updating handicaps and however you want to do that, it's up to you guys as captains to figure that out. But it's a very easy process because all we're going to do is come in here. Anybody with the GIN number, which should be all players, these are just fictitious players and fictitious GIN numbers. All players are going to be selected. So after a revision date, you make sure that the method is set to current and that you're starting to update rounds at a certain round. Now, as time goes on, you'll see these rounds after this date is passed be in the past. And for example, if we're on say we're doing the June 15th revision, these 2 rounds are going to be in the past. And the check mark up there is going to be next to this round here as a default. So we're going to start with this round and update player handicaps starting with this round for all future rounds. So once you select the round, you simply click Update, and we access GIN and update handicap indexes pulled directly from GIN. So it's a very easy process. It's just, in my opinion, those matches where they may fall close to a revision date and what the 2 captains have decided as far as what handicap indexes are being used. And I say that because if one person comes in here and updates handicap indexes for everybody, it's going to update indexes for all players on the roster. So that would be all teams. So I just wanted to make that point that you should probably communicate with the other captains within your section to determine a process for how you want to update handicaps. If there are any round dates that have not been played, we need to make sure that those round dates have been moved prior to the day of play. And if that comes up, send the NCGA staff a message about moving the round date to the correct date. The date should always be on the date you're playing or in the future when it comes to handicap updates. Okay, so I'm going to come back to reports. Actually, no, we'll go to reports now. Okay. So reports can be accessed. Again, it's here on the manager side or the advanced mode of TM. Within the round, we want to make sure that we're working in the round we have selected. And we go to the report center. And again, in the team captain manual, under the report section, this is laid out step by step. So it's very important as a captain to make sure that when you're in the report center, we're only performing actions under this event. So every section should have this category starred and have the same reports. When you open this up, there's going to be an alpha list and a T-sheet. There's a default or a template cart sign and a template scorecard. These are labeled do not edit for a very specific reason. Any changes that a person makes to the scorecard is going to make a change to that scorecard for every other section. That's why do not edit is explicitly put right here. So if you're going to use the scorecard and you want to edit it, all we need to do is click copy. And that places a copy in this event. You can click here to edit this, and you can name it, a certain round. You can name it a team, whatever you want to name it. It's entirely up to you. But now you can go in here and edit this scorecard any way you want. You can remove attributes. You can change stuff around. Whatever you want to do, that's basically your scorecard at this point. One thing I will note, I'm going to get back out of this one. But it is, again, it's critical that we make copies of these scorecards if you're going to edit them. And one thing that came up earlier and was actually probably a good suggestion, if you don't anticipate making any changes to these scorecards, the one limitation that we have right now is, even though that we have what we call, 4-ball matches or doubles matches, in addition to singles matches all in the same round, is the scorecard can only show handicaps, strokes, and off the low for one tournament. So if I make a copy of this and I call this, 4-ball matches, and I edit the scorecard, because we've got 2 tournaments within this round, I want to make sure that this one is selected to the 4-ball matches. So if I click save and I go back to the report center, if you're not anticipating making any edits at any point for that scorecard in the future, you don't even need to do anything. You can simply come in here, 4-ball matches, and click print. And you know that that 4-ball match tournament has been selected in this one. And then maybe we do the same thing with this template here. Maybe we call this one singles matches. So you would have to print 2 scorecards in this case, a singles and a 4-ball. But that's entirely up to you. This template here I thought was a decent template that could be used for both, because it does show it says match statuses, but we just don't show handicaps for both tournaments on the same card. It's feedback that we've got often, not only in team matches, but from a number of other clubs and associations. It would be nice at some point to have that, hopefully sooner rather than later, but it's definitely something that's been requested often. So for right now, we could either print that one card, make sure you're printing for the correct tournament, or you could do something like this and do 4-ball matches, make sure the 4-ball match tournament has been selected, singles match tournament's been selected. And then all you have to do, round by round, is come in and just simply print and print. So same thing with this team play card sign. Again, it's really just a template. If you want to change this around, what we should be doing is click copy, and you can rename this. So you could call this section 1 card signs. And at this point, you can edit this any way you want. You can take out attributes, you can remove them, entirely up to you. But the most important thing to take away from this area is do not edit these reports. Simply make a copy. It's going to be put into this event automatically, and then do what you would like with them at that point. Okay. Entering of scores. So last year with team matches, we had a number of different things going on. And a change from this year compared to last year is this year, all captains are going to be entering hole-by-hole scores for every single player. And that really accomplishes 2 different things at the same time. And part of where we struggled last year was we had match results being entered on the portal, but at the same time, we still wanted to post scores for players. So the entering of the hole-by-hole scores is going to basically accomplish 2 things at the same time. So this year, under team matches, you'll notice that there's no option to enter match results. So this is going to be done by entering hole-by-hole scores on the manager side. So if you're a captain here, after a round has been played, you would come into the manager side or the advanced mode, click on the rounds tab, You're going to select the round you're working in and enter hole-by-hole scores. We're going to click enter hole-by-hole scores. And at this point, all you're going to do is enter the player's gross score. As those get entered, we're going to do that for every single player. And after all scores have been entered, I'm going to just put in random scores here for time's sake. This will calculate and push results to the portal for this round. In addition, because the hole-by-hole scores have been entered, it automatically calculates the ESC score for the player for posting purposes. So I'm here on the leaderboard. If I open up the singles matches, we can see now the match status, the points that have been awarded for both the singles and the 4-ball matches. So if I'm a captain, after I've done this, let me go back to the dashboard. As I just mentioned, those results get pushed to the portal. Let me check one thing here real quick. It's going to show up on the schedule page, and it's going to show up on the standings. Just need to check one thing real fast. So when I go to the portal here, what I should see on the schedule page is Hidden Valley won 19-17. If you open up the details column, it's going to show kind of what we saw last year after we had entered match results. If I look on the standings page, it's going to show points have been pushed to the standings page, and because the NCGA and team matches are being ranked based on a win-loss tie record, Hidden Valley won. A win is worth 2 points, so they have 2 points. The loss is no points, but we do show the individual points from the matches as well. So the enter in the hole-by-hole scores automatically calculates both those tournaments for us. Now, as I mentioned a minute ago, the results and all those pages that you have access to now for every other section, if you want to come in and drill down and look at a round, you can very easily pick a section, pick a round, and you have access to come in here and say, okay, we want to see maybe another player, a friend of yours, you want to see how they did. You can simply open up their name and you can actually see their hole-by-hole scores and the match status. So last year we didn't have access to this. This year you've got access to view all of their sections, the pairings, and all of the results. X score. So let's talk about the entering of scores as a captain, and if there's any cases where you may have to enter an X score and how those work, because there may be matches that finish before 18 holes. There's 3 different scenarios that could come into play. The first one is the player attempts the hole and subsequently picks up. What you would want to do in that case is just enter an X score. What that will do from a posting standpoint is it will post the player's max ESC score. Now, in this case, if it's a singles match, the player with the score is going to win that hole. If it's a doubles match, the other player on the team, their score will count for the team. The other scenario is maybe a most likely score. So more likely than not, that's going to be within a doubles match only. But if you do need to enter a score where a player has attempted the hole and has picked up, but had a most likely score that was less than their max ESC score, we would enter an X number. The other option is if a player has not attempted the hole, is to leave the hole blank. And from a posting standpoint, what we do is we post par plus strokes for that hole. So 3 different scenarios. Player attempts the hole and picks up. You can enter an X and we'll post the player's max ESC score. Second scenario, player attempts the hole, but picks up, but would have had a most likely score of something less than their max ESC score. Enter an X number. If the player did not attempt the hole, leave the hole blank. And we will post par plus strokes. And again, that description of those 3 scenarios is in the captain's manual. So if you want to go back and reread that, or if you want some clarification about what to do, that is in that captain's manual. Okay, so let me get back here and get back to a good spot. I'm just going to rescore this real quick. So once the scores have been entered, the results get pushed to the portal. In addition, now that we have hole-by-hole scores, the ESC score will be calculated automatically. So that leads us to the next scenario, which would be the posting of the scores. So once the scores have been entered, we have match results. I believe it's the home team captain would simply come in to the round, make sure they're in the round they were working in, post scores to Jin. I believe these are going to be posted as tournament scores. Anybody that has a Jin number and the played in that round, you simply click post scores, and we will post their ESC score as a T score. So very easy. All you have to do is go to post scores, select the score type, click post scores, and we're done. So in the manual, that is described step by step of what to do and where to do it. A couple of miscellaneous notes. If you do have future round date changes, what we want to make sure is that those are being directed to Rick and Lindsay at the NCGA. They'll be handling round date changes on their end at this time. Matches without a player. If for any reason you have a match without a player, let the NCGA know. Because we're entering hole-by-hole scores, I don't foresee any issues if this comes up. It's really more of an issue when we're not entering hole-by-hole scores. Another point I want to make has to do with club or golf course staff access. And I didn't anticipate this with the SCGA, but I'm trying to get ahead of it with the NCGA. If you are having the golf course staff perform actions for you as a manager, it is imperative that they follow the captain's manual. And the reason I say that, and I'll give you a good example, is there are things in team matches that need to be done in certain areas. What happened in the past was golf shop staff did not attend a webinar. They did not read the captain's manual. And they have experience with USGA TM. So they're going to create pairings. First thing they do is they come in here to the manager side. They go to rounds. They go to edit tee sheet. And they start putting pairings in, which is the incorrect way to do it in team matches. But from their experience, that's typically what they would do in a normal event. So we do not want to make any pairings changes here on this page at all. This page, we're only assigning tee, starting hole, and maybe a starting time. So make sure if you're part of the golf course staff, or if you're going to have your golf course staff perform actions for you, make sure that they follow the captain's manual. And there's really no excuse for somebody to not have access to it. It's right here on both the Thursday and Saturday portals. This is Saturday. This is Thursday. It's right here. So if you don't know where you saved it, whoever gets to this portal can read this manual. So there's really no excuse for not following it. Where to find help? So a couple different ways. Obviously, you can send Rick and Lindsay an email. But if you are on your dashboard as a captain and you click the Help tab, if you click Contact Us, it's going to send our level 2 support staff a help ticket. If you're working on the manager side, if you click the Help tab over here on the right, you can click Contact Us, and it should send a help ticket in from here as well. One thing, if you're on the portal and you click that Help tab, I think it's just going to direct us to either Rick or Lindsay. But this is mine, so it's not a good example. This is the Thursday portal. If I click Help, Lindsay's name comes up. So if you want to send in a help ticket, either make sure you send it in from the dashboard or the advanced mode or the manager side of TM. So I know that manual may seem a little bit overwhelming. Most of it is screenshots, but it's really there to help you and give you, proper guidance about how to perform certain steps. So definitely use it as a resource. Like I said, I can't think of much of anything that you would come across that would not be in that manual. So I see a couple of people may have chimed in. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to get to the chat button earlier, but let me take a look through what maybe some of these questions may have been. So question about scorecards. I think I covered this earlier. It says trying to print out scorecards. It's either individual matches or but the team matches are not separate. Unfortunately, again, there's not a way to print out 2 different tournaments and have strokes be shown hole by hole and have the off the low be shown. You would either need to print out 2 different scorecards or print out 1 scorecard, and you can maybe hand dot this card for the singles matches. Can assistant captain do the same tasks as a captain? That might be a better question for the NCGA. I don't know what an assistant captain, and I don't know what their responsibilities would be versus a traditional captain. When players are added, are the HI modified to restrict to 18.4? Yes, every group has been capped at an index of 18.4. So you may have players that have an index of greater than 18.4. They should be reduced to a index of 18.4, and a course handicap would be calculated off of that reduced index. So it's already been implemented. If you see something other than that, either let the NCGA know or send in a help ticket. How do we lock handicaps for players with handicaps that have been lowered by the NCGA? So this is something that I had a discussion with Rick and Lindsay. If I go into, let me find mine. So this kind of goes back to the part of updating handicaps and communicating with other captains. Right now, and this was the NCGA's position, was during the handicap update, whoever performs that, it was the expectation that the captain who was updating indexes would know who those players that have been reduced are and to make sure that they're not being updated. So that means unselecting any of those players. That is what needs to be done for those players at this time. What if a singles match ends at 6-5 and a teams match ends at 4-3? Do we enter net par for those unplayed holes? So I don't know if my explanation earlier covered this, but if a player did not attempt a hole, we leave that hole blank. And what that does is we post for an ESC standpoint, par plus strokes, when there's no entry for the hole, whether it's a hole, an X, or an X number. If the player did not attempt the hole, leave it blank. This is a question probably more for NCGA. What about putts are conceded outside gimme range? Player thinks he would have two putted for bogey, but has given par. Who's correct? I would direct that question to Rick or the NCGA. Skipped over matches without a player. How do we handle this? Again, if you have matches where a player is not going, if you can't find a replacement and that player is not, and you have essentially a vacant spot, leave it vacant. And depending on how you're competing that match, whether it's that one player competing against the two other players and the singles person, it shouldn't cause an issue from my experience with entering hole-by-hole scores. All right, what else do we have here? Handicap is frozen and we're posting hole-by-hole scores. Isn't the real handicap, which I think you mean the current index, to be used for ESC? If so, how, when to change that? Let me talk with Rick about how he wants to handle that for those players who are being adjusted per their handicap reduction policy. Will we have to do anything different to add a female golfer? If the player is on the GIN roster and you've added that player to your team from the GIN roster, that player should come in with the correct gender. There shouldn't be anything you need to do. If that player is playing a different tee, you may have to assign that person a different tee. But other than that, there's nothing else that you should have to do. Is there a recommendation on the best way to approach playing around on the new handicap date? I think that really is something that needs to be decided between the captains. If you're playing on a revision date, and I don't know the exact rules as far as the NCGA goes, are you required to play to the new revision date on the 1st? If you are, then the updating of handicaps needs to occur. If you're playing on the 1st and you're not required to play at the new revision date, then you want to make sure from a handicapping updating standpoint that those handicaps for your players in that round do not get updated prior to the round being completed. So there's got to be good communication between the captains within your section when it comes to updating handicaps. Any other questions? Sunday's webinar will cover the exact same stuff. So if you definitely want to join, I would encourage it. If you're still not quite sure about what to do, where to go, again, we're just covering really everything that's in that captain's manual. So other questions come in, so let me read this real quick. We had players agree to match result, but had made mistakes in scoring. When scores are put into the computer and change the result of the match, what then? I think that's a question for the NCGA. I don't know how that gets handled if players agree to a match result, but the scoring is different. I would direct that question to the NCGA. Will you have answers from Rick on reduced handicap index or play on vision date? What I will do is we can either have Rick send out communication to captains, or you can direct a question to Rick, and based on our discussion, he would respond to you. Any other questions anybody's come up with? So good question. What time is the webinar on Sunday? We were going to plan on 6 o'clock. So we wanted to give everybody, we didn't want to do it in the afternoon and do it more towards the evening when hopefully people are kind of done doing their Sunday activities. After results and scores are posted, can they be changed? If there was a mistake, yes, they can be changed. I think that's a question for whoever was responsible for entering the scores at that point. Okay, any other questions? When I was entering pairings, the red boxes did not move to the left. So I'm not entirely sure what that question means. If you're a captain, you're on the portal and you go to your team. Depending on if you're the home team or the away team, your pairings are going to show on a certain side. So if it hasn't been explained already, the team on the left is actually the home team. And I've been trying to get that changed. So right now, Hidden Valley Lake is the home team. If I click on Hidden Valley Lake, my pairings are available on the left side. These pairings here would be the other team. So I'm not sure what it means by boxes did not move to the left. Just depends on what round you're in. Can we add a new course in T if one is not listed? I would send that to the NCGA. When moving players around in the pairings, is there a way to drag and drop the players? Unfortunately not. The only way to really change the pairings is to select a different player. So if you're going to replace Brett, for example, we select Brett, we choose the player from the drop-down, and we replace him with the player that needs to be replaced. It's not a drag and drop feature on here. It'd be nice, but unfortunately we don't. When are pairings shared with other team as entered? So I'm not sure if that just refers to being able to view the other pairings. As I mentioned earlier, you have the option to come to the pairings page. Let me find Saturday, for example. Anybody can see this. So if you're section 1, captain or player, if you pick the round that you want to see, let me try Thursday. So section 1, as soon as the players are entered into those pairings, they're going to show up here. There's no submit pairings this year. That is correct, because we ran into some issues with players or captains submitting their final lineups and trying to make changes. As soon as a captain enters their pairings onto the team match page, then they would be visible here on this page. I think what you're referring to, Dan, is there was an option, a pop-up that said, are these the final pairings? But when we did that, the pairings were essentially locked and you couldn't go back and change them. I agree. I think it's better that that's been removed. Okay, any other questions? All right, I don't see anything coming in, so thank you to everyone. Do we have to enter hole by hole? Answer to that is yes. Because entering hole by hole scores accomplishes two things at the same time. Calculates the results for the singles and the doubles match, and it also will calculate ESC scores for players. If using live scoring, does that go into the module portal directly? Yes, it does. Those scores would be pushed from the mobile app directly into the enter scores page that you saw earlier. So I didn't cover it here. It's in the captain's manual as an option. The NCGA wanted to allow that as an option this year. So there is instruction in the manual if you do want to use live scoring. And my opinion, saves the captains a step of having to enter those scores. So they wouldn't have to go back and enter those scores if you're using live scoring. You just definitely need to verify them. Once it's done, you move the round to complete. Results get pushed to the portal. ESC scores get pushed to, or ESC scores will be calculated based off those gross scores that are entered on the app. Can two people enter scores at the same time? Yes. In theory, you could have all 4 players entering scores at the same time. There's one, what we call Golf Genius ID, that pertains to each group, each pairing group. So you may want to have, it's up to you on however you want to do it. You could have 2 people log in. You could have them, one person verify scores and another person entering the scores. But anybody that enters that GGID for the foursome, in theory, could enter scores. It's very easy to enter scores on the app. All 4 players come up, and you basically just enter 4-4, 5-4, and you go to the next hole. You're welcome, Mary. I hope that, this year doing the webinar in conjunction with the team captain's manual, try and make it a little bit easier on everybody. So really what we want is we want everybody going in the same direction, everybody going in down the same path. So we've got some more information available this year on the portals, and I think it'll be easier, even though you're entering hole by hole scores this year, to make sure that all the results are correct, and it's going to be easier to post scores. All right, looks like everybody's just about done with questions, so you're welcome, everybody. Again, if you want to join us on Sunday, it's going to be the same content, but if you're still a little bit uncomfortable with certain elements, feel free to join as a refresher. And like I said, please take the time to read through that captain's manual. If it takes you 30 minutes, I think it's going to save you time on the back end if you don't read it and try and figure stuff out on your own. Thank you, everyone. If you're watching the game, good luck to the Warriors. They beat my Blazers, so I guess I'll pull for them because they're in the West. Thanks, everyone.